Brainiac's plan comes to fruition in My Adventures with Superman episodes 7, 8, and 9, the final arc before the 10th and final episode of Season 2 later on this week. Episode 7, titled Olsen's 11, picks up Jimmy and Lois's side of Episode 6, revealing after Kara and Superman's explosive battle in Metropolis and Kara whisking Superman away into space, Amanda Waller has installed martial law in Metropolis, claiming Superman poses a direct threat to humanity and only her human defense force can stop him. Obviously, there's a little bit of synergy going on here, as Waller in the comics has just taken over the world and defeated all superheroes much like she did here. But this is a bit of synergy I don't actually mind, since it didn't come out of nowhere and it doesn't feel like it's mandated, as we've been building towards this since her early introduction in Season 1. While Waller secures the city, Jimmy and Lois come up with a plan to rescue Clark, wanting to take an experimental jump ship from Star Labs into space and look for him. In order to get the ship though, they have to steal it, and Lois wants to hire Livewire. I'm glad both Livewire and Heatwave are getting involved in this plot, since I assumed they would have kind of been written out of the show a little bit, being that they kind of wanted to retire and kind of live their own lives. And I like that that's actually part of the story here, whereas Heatwave doesn't want to get involved in this and just wants to, stay low, stay quiet, away from Waller's influence and everything, whereas Livewire thinks that this will give them the money they need to do that life, since Jimmy will be paying them, of course. And I like that causes a tension between both of them, with Heatwave taking her leave and Livewire left alone to join the team. The rest of the crew is filled out by Monsieur Mala and Living Brain, who have returned to this Earth after exploring the multiverse and getting into a few tussles with their multiversal counterparts, which ended with another black hole, hence why they had to return to this Earth. They decide to help Jimmy since he and Superman helped them, so they're kind of repaying a debt they feel they owe. Their characters I absolutely loved in Season 1, so getting them back along with Livewire and Heatwave is just fantastic. I love it. They're building on things we've seen before, bringing things back we've seen. It's great. The crew get to work to break into Star Labs to steal the ship, but as they do, Waller and Slade come to visit Project M, Lex's big secret weapon, which is the Metallos that he is now requisitioning and stole from Steelworks when he took that over. They soon discover Jimmy and Lois's crew, as Marla and Brain want to make a detour to find some europium, a mineral that will help them power their portal devices, meaning they leave Jimmy and Lois all alone, as Leslie tries to escape when Slade comes after them. Eventually, Jimmy and Lois find the ship, only to discover that it's kind of half built and hasn't been completed in any sort of way, which causes Lois to break down, since this was her only chance to get out there and save Clark. Lois opens a little bit to Jimmy about her and Clark seemingly breaking up 2 episodes ago, revealing to Jimmy that she still loves Clark but is scared because she is just a normal woman, and how could he ever love someone like her when he's Superman? He's the Man of Steel. He obviously couldn't love a normal human woman. We've seen this before in, comics and TV shows and all sorts of stuff, that sort of insecurity that Lois has, and, kind of rightly so. I think many people would actually think that. And I like that they're tackling that here in this show. And it's a lovely little scene. However, I would have liked it to continue a little bit more, because it gets, wouldn't say undercut, but kind of interrupted by Brain and Marla returning, having gathered the parts they need not only for their portal device, but to also help repair the ship, assuring Lois and Jimmy that they weren't going to abandon them at all. The ship gets repaired and is suddenly attacked by Metallos as they breach the hangar, and the crew is saved by Livewire and Heatwave, who instead of running off decided to come and help after all. And in a classic bit of heist deception, stuff you'd see in Ocean's 11, which this movie makes many references to, we learn that Livewire and Heatwave's fight in their apartment at the start of the episode was actually all part of the plan, as Heatwave assembled her own crack team of thieves, and while Waller was distracted by Lois and Jimmy's break-in, they broke into Waller's armory and stole all of her weapons, planning on making off with the loot and blaming Lois and Jimmy for it. Livewire, however, had a change of heart after she hears Lois's breakdown over the comms that she's still connected to. And as she so eloquently puts it, love isn't for cowards, and she knows, and Lois knows, Lois is no coward. As I said before, I love that we have brought these characters back to help inform the current storylines and build on them. And I like that they're using that Heatwave Livewire romance that we got in Season 1 to inform on this, because they're their romance, their budding romance in that first season was very much based on this, that love is not for cowards, and being in love and feeling love is not a weakness. It's something that makes you strong, and that will end up becoming like a running thing throughout these 3 episodes as we move through it, which I really like, that there's a through line through these 3 episodes, like a little arc that takes us into the finale of episode 9. Thanks to Leslie and Rory helping out, Lois and Jimmy's shuttle blasts off and heads into space, where they quite literally run into Kara, which we saw at the end of the previous episode. Episode 8, titled The Death of Clark Kent, catches up with Clark, who undergoes torture at the hands of Brainiac, who puts him in the Black Mercy. Now, I don't know how to actually kind of feel about the change of the Black Mercy here, since I really love the parasite plant alien thing from the Alan Moore comic. It's a distinct design, and when you see it, you immediately know what it is. It's just weird looking. It fits the, sci-fi aesthetic that Superman often has. A very distinct design, and you know what it is. But here it's literally just like a little black tiara. Yeah, it fits the shows and Brainiac's aesthetics, but it feels completely robbed of any sort of creativity, and kind of feels like a bit of a budget thing where they didn't have enough budget to maybe do a big gross alien, so they just kind of went with this. My real problem with it is just the design of it, the actual look of it. That's really my main problem. So it isn't really it's more of a nitpick, because how it actually functions is very similar to the classic Black Mercy, as Clark is kind of pulled into his mind or into a dream world where, with Brainiac controlling everything, he's able to sort of manipulate Clark's memories, and he has to have him fight all the fights we saw in season 1 of him, fighting Parasite and Livewire and all these other people, and it's all for Brainiac to try and figure out what Clark's weaknesses are so he can use them to effectively quote-unquote kill Clark's mind and then take over his body, as we learn that the computer that houses his AI is degrading, and so he needs a mind to upload himself into. Clark is forced to relive all of these memories as Lois and the crew meanwhile reunite with Kara, and we get more cool little awkward moments between Jimmy and Kara, who very obviously like each other very much, but they doing that kind of, shy teenager sort of thing with each other, and I really like that. You see it all the time in anime, which the show references quite heavily, and I just love it. It's great, and they're a great little pairing. I would love to see a lot more of these in the coming episodes, in the coming seasons as well. Hopefully it's something that sticks around. Now things get quite interesting with Kara here, as she actually see her quote-unquote father is being evil. She still isn't convinced that he's evil, and is actually convinced that he's malfunctioning, and it's why he's endangering Clark, because he's malfunctioning and he needs to repair himself. And I like that. She's in a bit of a denial over what she saw on Thanagar and the destruction there she caused under Brainiac's influence. And there's also a little bit of kind of a Superman in her, because she's not jumping to conclusions straight away. She wants to hear out what Brainiac has to say about all of this and kind of hear from both sides. And that's something Superman would do. He would actively try and figure out, okay, is this actually true? Did Brainiac destroy these worlds? If he did, he will suffer the consequences, but I want to hear him say it. I want to hear him confess and actually, tell the truth. And that's a very Superman thing, and I like that. I don't know whether that was something that was actually written in as sort of a through line for the character here, but it's definitely something that I picked up on, and I thought it was actually kind of cool how she's a little bit more like Clark than she realizes, even when she's under the control of Brainiac. It's also really refreshing to see that they are bucking the trend of her immediately turning into a hero after realizing what she's done, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that takes us into the final 2 episodes and where she gets to confront Brainiac about what's going on. Brainiac meanwhile continues to run Superman through a gauntlet of his greatest battles, studying the hero to find his weaknesses, and soon he finds them in Jimmy and Lois. This is a bit of a classic Superman thing. The villain works out that Superman, loves the people, he cares for them, so the villain will target those people and make Superman vulnerable. It's something we've seen done countless times. And again, it's just something I really love. It's a classic trope of that character. And it also brings out the best in Clark, since it really shows that he has this never give in, unbreakable spirit that he has to defend his friends and family with. Kara, Jimmy, and Lois arrive on Kandor, boarding the ship only to find everything is powered down, with Kara thinking that her father is still malfunctioning and is in sort of a repair mode, hence why everything's powered down. And so she leaves Jimmy and Lois to go and find Clark, but not before awkwardly relaying her feelings to Jimmy. And again, I just want these two to be a theme throughout the show since their dynamic works so damn well, especially with these versions of these characters. Clark meanwhile is assaulted by some more of Brainiac's visions as he begins to piece together not only protecting the people of Earth is Clark's weakness, but things like people rejecting him or fearing what he is, or seeing him as less than human, or just an alien, is things that Clark fears the most as well. And we see that through stuff like Lex stirring up trouble at the debate he and Jimmy went to, and what he overheard Lois telling Sam when he tried to visit Lois, but obviously he heard only one side of that conversation, but it still affected him. I love Brainiac is kind of acting like the devil on Clark's shoulder here, trying to convince Clark that he can help him overcome this weakness. If he just gives in to him, he can make him free from this pain. And it's a really interesting way to take Brainiac, because obviously Brainiac, he's the collector of worlds. He's got a very strict sort of, character arc that he usually has whenever he appears. He's collecting worlds, information, technology. And I like that he's kind of doing that here, but like in a completely different way than what we're used to seeing. Usually it's a very physical thing, he's bottling cities, taking people, taking artifacts. Here he's like studying memories and studying what makes a hero tick and everything. It's really interesting. Kara eventually confronts Brainiac, and I love the total shift here the villain has, since now he has Superman. He doesn't really care for Kara one bit, casting aside his so-called daughter because he's now found someone who's stronger and, fits him a little bit more better than Kara. Because I had to imagine, I said in my previous reviews of some episodes that I assumed that Kara was meant to be the one who was possessed, but now that once he learned Superman existed and that someone else, another Kryptonian was out there, possibly powerful, a Kryptonian, and he just kind of cast Kara aside. And that appears to be what has happened here, with Kara sort of being just shunned by her so-called father figure. This causes Brainiac to be attacked by Kara and puts him kind of on the back foot, since while he's being attacked in the real world, he's kind of lost his grip on Clark in the dream world, and Clark is able to fight back and regain control, if but for a moment, since in a neat twist, Clark again loses control and his mind is flooded with memories again of Lois betraying him and, culminating in their breakup. It is very refreshing to see the show actually kind of buck all of these tropes, because you think this would be like the big moment where Clark breaks out of the control and is able to free himself and he fights the bad guy and all that sort of stuff. You'd see that probably in something like the animated series, that they would do something like that, but I like that they're bucking the trends here and going against what we usually are used to seeing. And that continues as well, because obviously Brainiac is fighting Superman in the dream world. He's also fighting Supergirl in the real world, so he's kind of overextending his reach, and he's seemingly defeated and Superman is freed from the Black Mercy. But in a neat little plot twist that I think was revealed a bit too soon, since it happens literally in the next scene, none of that has actually happened, and Clark was actually pulled fully into Brainiac's control. His mind left to live out a life on a planet with his family, while Brainiac takes control of his body, giving him a slick black new costume, as the episode ends with a now fully possessed Superman battling Kara, Jimmy, and Lois and blasting them out into space before jumping away to Earth to begin his invasion. This is big Empire Strikes Back vibes, the villain has won, the heroes are scattered, and anything and everything can happen next. The episode closes out as well with Lois deciding to use the Black Mercy to enter Clark's mind and try to free him. Episode 9 explores Clark inside the dream world, and we see some really cool, neat things from Superman canon, like the Sun Eater from All-Star Superman and various other Superman comics, with Clark trying to feed this Sun Eater and try and treat it as a pet, where his parents don't want him to do that at all. However, we learn that his parents aren't actually his parents at all, but are constructs made to look like his parents, but they're actually Brainiac, and they're sort of manipulating him and sort of keeping him in line so he can't can't break out of this prison he is in. Lois soon arrives in the system, but unfortunately she can't seem to remember who she is, and Laura and Jor-El end up catching her, revealing that they are just Brainiac constructs to her, and Lois being there puts Clark in jeopardy since the Black Mercy is only actually meant to be used by one mind at a time, and if there's two minds in it, that's why Lois forgot her memories, since it's kind of all scrambled together. Clark meeting with her, however, kind of jogs her memory, but thanks to Brainiac's influence, Lois gets stuck in a type of time loop, which stops her from warning Clark on what's going on. Whenever she gets really close to it, time sort of resets thanks to Brainiac. And I really like a good time loop, time trap plot. And it's such an interesting way to do it, especially with the Black Mercy. And as I said before, while I don't like the design of the Black Mercy, mechanics and how it works are really on point, and I like getting to explore them within the boundaries of this universe, since it's a little bit changed from what we usually are used to, thanks to the time shifts and someone actually being able to manipulate and control it. But I really like the mechanics on how it works. It's just a shame how it looks. It doesn't look good. Lois though goes through this loop countless times until she eventually manages to get through to Clark. Jimmy and the others meanwhile crash land on Earth and manage to evade Waller thanks to the help of Steve Lombard and some other people. And holy moly, Steve gets like a great moment here. He's not just like, a character who's just brought in for some levity like he usually is. Here he gets a great talk where he gives Kara this great little pep talk about she's being knocked down and she doesn't feel like getting back up, and like she feels defeated and deflated. And Steve just says, well, her cousin has that happen to him all the time, and Superman still just gets back up and keeps fighting the good fight, fighting the never-ending battle. I just love that it's Steve Lombard of all people delivering this guy who's usually like, the office jock, bully guy, delivering this really heartfelt sort of speech to Kara. And it just kind of goes to show how Superman has touched all of these people's lives in some way. And I actually think it's a great way to deliver a pep talk to Supergirl, since Clark really hasn't had any proper interaction with Kara. Like, he hasn't actually been able to sit down with her and sort of talk about like life on Earth and all these people and everything. Kara has actually only had more interactions with people like Jimmy and, Steve and Lois, people that Superman has touched. Superman has touched their lives and he's rubbed off on these people, and so these people are now passing what they have learned from Superman onto Supergirl. And that's genius. I think that's absolutely fantastic, since it allows her to arrive at the idea of becoming a hero, or being able to rise back up on her own accord and not be having Clark tell her what she has to be. She can be her own person. It's genius, and I can't believe other writers have not thought about this or doing this more frequently with Supergirl. Clark meanwhile regains his memories of Lois within the Black Mercy as Jor-El attacks, and of course it's not really Jor-El, it's just Brainiac pretending to be him, and we get a cool twist as Lois in the dream world seemingly has Superman's powers. She's able to defeat Jor-El pretty easily. Super Brainiac, the possessed Superman, meanwhile invades Earth finally, and Waller and her Task Force X attack. However, they are nothing compared to the combined strength of a Kryptonian and a 12th level intellect. That is until Kara confronts Super Brainiac. The show's action has always been top notch, and the fight here is no different. It's fast paced and chaotic, as well as thanks to combining things like Lex getting involved with his kryptonite powered Metallos. There's just a lot going on. It's just complete and utter chaos in the streets of Metropolis. The fight is paralleled by Lois and Clark's battle in the dream world, where the power of love frees Clark, quite literally. This is so great. It's just such a Superman thing to do. The power of hope, the power of love and belief is something that happens with Superman quite a fair bit, and I love the reasoning behind Lois's powers here, since this is all in Clark's mind. This is Clark's mind making this up, and he's always seen Lois as someone who's strong and tough, and so in his mind, she actually is. She actually has powers, and together Lois and Clark are able to smash out of the Black Mercy and free themselves. Thanks to Clark getting his body back, Brainiac decides to blow up Earth, readying his death laser, but Kara plans on stopping it in the last moment, taking the words of Jimmy, Steve, and all of those others to heart to become a hero. And it's also pretty lucky that Superman returns in the nick of time to help her out, donning a fancy new costume. Now, I don't mind the costume, it's fine, but There's things about it I don't like. I don't like the weird shoulder pads or the big thigh-high boots. They look quite strange, and I don't know if the costume's going to be sticking around for very long. It feels like, like a power-up costume, like you'd wear when you pick up the power-up in a video game and it gives you like an extra shield or something. Feels like something like that, and we'll see a bit more of a return to a classic Superman costume, or maybe a combination of both in the coming episodes or in the finale. We don't get the costume that long though, because the episode ends with Brainiac's attack continuing and Superman succumbing to kryptonite poisoning after Brainiac takes control of the kryptonite metallos, leaving the episode on a big cliffhanger for the final episode. The last 3 episodes of My Adventures with Superman are probably my favourite of the entire show. The writers know how to write a great fun arc for all of their cast, and I love just how new and different the take on Brainiac is for the series. It was refreshing, yet still hit all of those hallmarks of a classic Brainiac. Kara has been a super interesting character, as well as her arc being informed by the people Clark's life has touched instead of Clark himself is really damn cool, leaving the character to find her own way towards becoming a hero and not be told what she has to be. My only gripe with the episodes, and it's really just like a real nitpicky thing for me, was the Black Mercy, and that was really just on a visual design style wise. I didn't like what it looked like. It didn't have any creativity whatsoever, but the mechanics of it were brilliant, and I liked how they built on the classic mechanics of the Black Mercy and kind of informed on them quite a fair bit. I can't wait for the finale in a few days and where the show will go in season 3, as well as the comic adaptation that's going on at the moment, which has also been excellent. I'm going to give these episodes a 10 out of 10.